Welcome to episode 1 of the best and worst possible series, where we will be going through and basically choosing the best episode 1s of all the series, worst episode 2s, best episode 3s, and so on, so on, so on. And then we'll eventually, by the end of it, have a proper worst possible series and best. And today we're going to be doing the best episode 1s. And obviously I'm not going to do a worst episode 1s because it's just like, you know, the list in reverse order, isn't it? So we're just going to be doing a worst episode 2 and best episode 3, as I said. So anyway, let's get into it. We're going to be going backwards, so we're going to start with the worst and then get to the best. So, the worst, in my opinion, place number 13 is Asylum of the Daleks. Now, Asylum of the Daleks is, you know, these are all fun stories. They're really good stories. It's not like they're one of the really bad stories, per se, that you can get in Doctor Who sometimes, or from 55. But it's, you know, so it's one of the good ones still. It's just a bit fun. But out of the other ones, it's just not really there. Now, next for number 12, again, kind of the same thing. It's got some fun, but it's not the best. It's the Series 9 opener, that Dalek two-parter. Again, you might be sensing a pattern here, not Daleks. I love Daleks, and, you know, you probably should know that by the name of the channel by now. But it's the fact that I don't necessarily like how Moffat writes his Daleks, especially in Asylum and especially in the Series 9 opener. In my opinion, they are the two weakest modern Who Dalek stories. I don't like what they do to them. Hate that kind of emotion thing where it's like, you know, they say I love you and it's exterminate. Hate that. You know, the whole asylum thing, how they have an asylum, it makes sense, but just the way it's kind of delivered, and it's just not the best. But yeah, that's, you know, it's just that they are the worst Who, in my opinion, series openers. So number 11 is the pilot. It has, you know, it's a good story. It's a solid episode. There's some good moments. I do like how it jumps throughout different time zone. It makes you feel like you've been with Bill a bit longer than you have, which is, I think, really good. So, you know, she's only one series, and, you know, she dies in that series technically. So you need to kind of have some form of, you know, attachment to her for that to have a good impact. I just think that, you know, it's not really, nothing really happens. The plot's nothing overly amazing. Yeah, I do like it. I think it works as a story. I think it's a really, really solid story. I think Series 10 is a very solid season. But, you know, yeah, I just don't think it's the best series opener. Number 10. This might annoy a few people because number 10 spot is Rose. Now, again, I do like Rose. I like, you know, the kind of moments that you get in it when she walks into the TARDIS, when she walks out of the TARDIS. That kind of him coming back at the end when he changes his mind. He's like, oh, I can travel in time. All of that stuff. Really, really good. But I just, some of it's a bit flat. It's a bit boring. I think when you take away the fact it's the first episode, it's like you're beginning this whole new adventure, it just doesn't really stand out compared to other series openers as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's beaten 3, but that's it for me. It's only beaten 3. So yeah, that's it really. There's not much to say about the episode, which is for me the problem. I think whereas other series openers, like, you know, SPYFALL, for example, or, you know, New Earth, they've got kind of proper plots that you're following through, and I know Rose has as well, but there's never, like, there's not too many slow moments, and yet you're always doing something, if you know what I mean, and it's constantly moving the plot forward, but some bits in Rose doesn't do that for me, so that's just, you know, for me, personally, it's not my favourite series opener. Number 9 spot is FLUX. Now, I actually love the FLUX series opener, and when coming to make this list, I was really surprised how kind of high up it was in, obviously, you know, the higher up it is, the worse it is, but like on the list, because I really do love the FLUX opener, the Halloween Apocalypse. But I've got to look at where it stands to other series openers and what it does, and does it round off anything? No, I know it can't, but it does spend an awful lot of time setting everything up. But obviously, trying to take off in hindsight, you know, does it pay off, all of that? Got to stand out just episode 1 by itself compared to some of the other ones on the list, and, well, you know, lower down, the better ones. It doesn't compare to them as well as I thought it would, so that's why it's number 9 on the list and not say number maybe 4 or 5, which I assumed it was going to be. So after that, we then have 8, another Whittaker one, which is The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Love the story, one of her best stories in my opinion. But again, it kind of in a way suffers what Rose does. It's Rose, but done better. Now, obviously you don't get the TARDIS kind of reveal kind of thing. you don't necessarily get the whole companion finds out because the companions are kind of thrown into it. So it is a little bit hard to compare these two stories. But for me, it does kind of the reboot episode better than Rose does. It, you know, it just does it better for me. There's better moments, there's better character kind of plot moments and developing. More stuff happens in the episode, I think, is my main thing. You know, there's a few different plots going on. You've got the kind of, you know, Tim Shaw plot, the weird wiggly thing with all the wires. Then you've got, you know, the crane dude. Then you've got Grace dying. Then you've got at the end that cliffhanger of them trying to find the TARDIS and it all goes wrong. You've got the nice outfit moment in there, the building the Sonic. There's a lot more standout points than there is in, say, Rose, and some of the other ones we listed before. But again, for me, for series openers, I can't just look at, is this a really good story? That's not what I'm looking at here. Obviously, I am taking that into account heavily, but I'm also looking at, is this a good series opener? And there are some better than it. And the one that is better in it, in number 7 place, is New Earth. Now, I know a lot of people like this one. I do. It's a fun story. It's, you know, the whole Tennant kind of thing is done the episode before, so you can just jump right into it. It feels fun and it feels fresh, which Series 2 needs to be. It's a different Doctor, it's a different tone of Doctor, so then that changes the entire kind of tonal shift of the show, of like the entire show, which it does. Because from Series 2 onwards, the entire tone of the shift is completely different. You got the kind of different classic tones for different Doctors in Classic Who, but they're all kind of similar. The 9th one, his tone, yeah, he's not as dark as, you know, some of the other Big Finish type things, but he is a very different Doctor to all the others. And that impacts the kind of tone and theme of the series and the show that set out to be. But then when you bring in David Tennant, then it all changes. And I think that's when New Earth, it's fun. It's a fun, fresh, new start for the show. And yes, I know, I think people watching the show should start from Eccleston. You really, 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 really should. But it works just as well for a jumping on point, if you got to be brutally honest. Number 6, Smith and Jones. Basically, same reasons as New Earth, but not as much, because obviously it's not rebooting the whole thing completely. But it's a great companion opener. It's got some really good dramatic moments, some high tense moments in there. Really makes you question a few things. You know, obviously it links back later on Turn Left, but we can't really talk about that too much, because that's not fair to the other ones that don't do that. But I think, like I said, there's some great characters in there. The threat's really good. The kind of double threat, where the Dune are a threat, but they're also kind of not a threat. Really good. The plot twists, I said. The dramatic moments, the whole of TARDIS being left on there, so it really is up to the Doctor and Martha. Great episode, already starts building up Martha's family unit. It's just a really good story, in my opinion. And it sets the tone for Series 3, which is basically, in my opinion, a more ground-touching and modern Series 2, if that makes sense. Series 3 basically feels like a harder version of Series 2, which it probably is why Series 3 is my favourite of the show. Like, you know, Series 3 is my favourite series of the show. So yeah, that's that. But in 5th place, coming after Smith and Jones, is The 11th Hour. Basically, it's just a great series opener. Love that TARDIS moment. The bit where he disappears and then comes back as well. That whole kind of still linking back to the 10th Doctor a lot. You know, that Sonic breaking moment. The TARDIS when he, you know, it's on fire and then he, you know, and it's the Tennant TARDIS, but then it all starts steaming up and we come back and it's a new one. All that kind of stuff is really good for a series opener and it works for a series reboot, but it still feels very season 4, and I think that's good because it uses a lot of the series 4 soundtrack as well. But I think that it's really good. It works fantastically as a bridge episode from one era to the next. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Series 14 and stuff, and the 60th and that. The 60th as a whole, I think, is going to act as that. But really, the 60th isn't going to just act as a change from Chibnall era to RTD2. It's going to be a bridge of basically modern Doctor Who to like new Doctor Who, like a brand new era, even going past RTD. But yeah, 11th Hour, great story, good moments in there. Yeah. Episode 4, sorry, slot number 4, not episode 4, Spyfall. People might be surprised by this. Love that cliffhanger of episode 1. Plots in episode 2 are really good. Stakes are there. Acting isn't always the best from, like, you know, Tosin Cole. Really good. I love how they split up the Doctor from, like, the gang and stuff. I also really feel like it's good to have the characters do stuff. All of the characters are doing something, you know. Graham's with the Doctor kind of sorting out some Kasavin stuff with O at that point. Then you've got Yaz and Ryan doing the other stuff with Lenny Henry's character. So there really is a lot to go on there, and it's really, really good. Number 3, we're getting into kind of end zone territory here, where we're going to be picking our best episode 1. Now, these top 3 were kind of hard to pick between, but you might actually be surprised. And I was surprised myself by these kind of top 3 in the ordering of all of this list, because rather than just being like, yeah, I like that one, I think that's my favourite, what I did was I went up and down constantly. I was like, okay, does that beat that? Does that beat that? Yes, no, and kind of eventually made this list from doing that. It took a while. You should try. It takes a bloody long while. But, you know, episode 3, Deep Breath, my favourite post-regeneration story. Again, does what New Earth does, but because it's, sorry, not New Earth, does what the 11th Hour does, but in my opinion, it does it better than that, is bridging the Capaldi to the 11th Doctor's era. It just feels, again, we're modernising Doctor Who, we're taking another step up into, like, the kind of future of the show, and it feels like, okay, here we go, it's different, let's roll with it, and we're in new territory here, and it does it again. I said this the other day to someone, it's basically like, you know, you've got series 1 to 4, and then you've got series 1, 2, then it feels like you take a big step in quality and everything for series 3 and 4, and then it feels like you take another big step like series 5 and like series 6 and series 7, then you take another big step series 8, 9 and 10, and then 10 has like a, you know, step forward and so on. And I think that's how it kind of works, and that's why Deep Breath for me is the better next step, I guess you could say, which is why it's higher up on the list and in number 3. Number 2 and number 1 really surprised myself here, because I love both of these stories. Number 2 is Partners in Crime. Great story. I think you should. I don't really probably need to explain why. You just should know. It is a great story, great acting, great music, great effects, great plot, great dramatic romance. That scene where they reunite, perfect. They're kind of already setting up some plot points, perfect. That Rose cliffhanger, perfect. So much of that story. It's a perfectly written, acted and delivered episode, which is why, and a perfectly episode set up the whole season and set up the tone of the season, the dynamic. It sets up everything perfectly while also being a perfect episode, which is why it's number 2 spot. But I just feel like there is an episode, a story that does that just that bit more, and just the fraction is so small, but on just the next level, and that is in our number 1 spot, which is The Impossible Astronaut. That kind of, you know, the series 6 opener. I feel like it just does that exactly what Partners in Crime does, but does that on the next level, the next step, and obviously it's a lot bigger, it's a lot grander, and it's 2-parters, so that's probably why it has more time to do on that next step, and for me is why it is probably the strongest series opener, not the strongest episode on this list. I probably prefer Partners in Crime. In fact, I do prefer Partners in Crime, but in series opener, it is the best and it is the strongest in my opinion. Now, remember, you can leave yours below or join the Discord. We're also doing our own kind of series battling on our community tab, so subscribe to get that keep popping up to you. We're basically taking all of the Doctor Who seasons head to head and voting which is strongest every single day. You know, tomorrow we will be doing the worst episode of Doctor Who for episodes 2, and we'll see how that goes for kind of our episode 2. You know, we'll have a look. I'm wondering what will be my favourite and my least favourite. I haven't made the list yet. I'm not that prepared, but you know, it's going to be interesting because episode 2s, they can sometimes either be just as strong and carry on, or they can really drop. So it really depends. Orphan 55. I'm looking at you. Wait, was Orphan 55 episode 3? I think it was. If it was, I'm looking at you, Orphan 55. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.